when to smash and when to chill. How would you know what level of intensity your training should be? Let's cover that in this episode of JitsChat. Hi guys, sure Jiu-Jitsu Uncle Dave here, and welcome back to another episode. A couple of days ago, I got this interesting question from someone. This person mentioned that he feels like he is spazzing in training. He doesn't exactly know what it means, but in his mind, he's chilling. In his mind, he's doing a controlled, flowy type of training and rolling session. But the general consensus and feedback from observers and training partners is that it's going too hard. Begs the question of how do you assess whether your training intensity is too much, too little, and when should you do either? How do you adjust? Obviously, the feedback of your training partners, as well as more advanced teammates in your gym, would be your first stop in terms of assessing whether you are spazzing or not. And by definition, I don't really count being aggressive to be the same as being spazzing. I would say that the spazziness is more of high intensity movements without much control or intention to achieve something, versus being fast or aggressive is purely turning that knob of intensity higher while still doing the fundamental things that you do at a slower pace. It's like it's exactly the same thing, it's just a lot faster. And because of the speed and the timing aspect of things and just how the role and the reaction goes between you and your partner provides less control, hence the supposed chaos that transpires. While being spazzy is essentially you don't know what the hell you have to do, and you're using as much speed and muscle to execute a certain move to achieve a certain objective. So let's just address the spazziness first, because like if you're more advanced, I would imagine that most of the time you probably pass that spazziness phase and you're more in the less controlled intensity side of things. So I don't want to cover that too much, because even if you watch the pros, the high level guys, when it comes to high intensity competition training or even the actual comp itself, you can see that inadvertent elbows and eye pokes and whatnot. It just happens simply because of how fast things are happening, and it's always a give and take response type of situation. But at a lower level, at the hobbyist level, like ours, the moments of spaz wherein we're trying to use trickery in a sense of using speed, power, and surprise to achieve something rather than a technical execution accelerated is very different. And so, as I mentioned earlier, your feedback from the feedback you get from your training partners and your seniors, your coaches, your instructor will pretty much be accurate. There's really no reason or justification to defend yourself otherwise, because it's just a feedback, right? And if you don't think you're spazzing, but other people are, so it's a my word against yours type of situation. It's up to your ego to adapt and whether to take that as a constructive criticism and feedback, or you're just going to double down and say they suck, you know. So they need to learn how to deal with you, which is kind of silly in my opinion, but I digress. So how do you know when you're spazzing? Let's say you're stuck in a position. Let's say you're trying to pass a guard and you couldn't pass this person's guard who just happens to be a little bit more advanced than your guard passing skills. And instead of trying to solve the equation, you start spamming, like you're just running around, for example, or just like doing random hyper aggressive knee cuts and things like that to just smash the person without really preparing for any setup and things like that. And the odds of you getting hurt or hurting other people will be significantly higher. That's what I deem as spasm. Or let's say you're stuck in somebody's close guard, and instead of knowing certain moves or techniques or baits to allow you to get out of a close guard, your natural response is to pick them up and try to slam them on the mat, or just like fold them with a can opener, you know, hoping that they'll pop it off and things like that, you know. So that's considered spazzing. But okay, now that we kind of define what those two are, how do you know? Obviously, you can't just turn up the switch and suddenly be a more advanced and technical practitioner, right? We have to be honest with that. So at this current level of skill and knowledge that you have, how do you monitor yourself that you are hitting that spaz limiter? And so you can adjust and just be more self-conscious about it not really to look good to others, but more like making sure that you are aware of what's going on with your body movement so that you can improve accordingly. And also, to create a better training environment. I always say that training, you don't win training. Your objective in training is to get better by identifying what you're good at, and more importantly, what you're not good at, so you can improve exponentially. The goal is not to dominate your training partner with your A or B game. What's the point in that? You're not comp training. If you are actually training for a specific competition, you want to refine your A game, then that's fine. But in regular training, that's not the objective, and neither are we at that level to really capitalize on that. You may think that you're great at a certain move at the white, blue, even purple level, but realistically, you're not. Most of the time, you're not. You just happen to know that move more than the other person temporarily, and until when the more advanced people know the setup, know what's coming, know what you're trying to do, it doesn't matter how good you think you are, your move is going to get defended or negated just after one or two exposures to it. Anyway, going back, I'm deviating. So how do you monitor yourself if you're spazzing? As this is like age independent. It doesn't matter how old you are, but I guess it's honestly a little easier if you're older because you run out of breath a lot sooner. But for younger people where you pretty much have like a bottomless gas tank for 45 minutes, it's a little tougher for you to realize that. One of the ways that you can try to be more aware of is when you get stuck in certain positions where you feel like, crap, I couldn't get out of this and I'm using more muscle, I'm using more energy trying to do something and it's not working. That might be a good time for you to like just quickly snap out of it and think of what's going on. Like, why am I stuck here? Am I getting pinned somewhere? Is my center of gravity off? Is somebody having superior grip and control over me? Do I have inside position and dominant angles that allow me to move more freely and make them, whoever it is that's controlling you, less mobile and less capable of stopping your movement? These are not cases where you need to know more technique. It's more of like being situational aware of what the environment is. Are you off center? Are you the one forcing yourself to be off center? Is that the right thing to do? Those kind of things will allow you to take a breather, get some control back, and then try the moves again. And you can like refine that specific sequence of events, whether it's preventative or prescriptive, to see if it actually helps you. Remember that having a training partner is a privilege. It's not a right. They are not there who pay their bills to be your punching bag, to be your grappling dummy. And it's your responsibility to keep them safe while you're training. But that doesn't mean that you're gonna do everything like wishy-washy and soft and incorrect and no technical stuff. No, it's just that you have to be aware of your own limitations of when and what sort of movements that you have less control over. Understand your body limitations and your attributes, shortcomings that is uniform regardless of moves, so that you know when to slow down and when to adjust accordingly. If you know, let's say you really want to train takedowns, but you know that you're flat-footed and you have a tendency to drive off your toes or being light on your toes and something like that, maybe you do things significantly slower until you figure out like how wide of a step should you take. What angle should you cut? What's a comfortable like dip in terms of level change that works for you? And that's where your partner comes into play. And guess what? If you're a spaz and you're a prick in training, you ain't gonna get those partners who help work with you. They're just gonna say no. You're just gonna say, nah, like I'm not gonna get hurt for you and I'm not getting anything in return. Your partner can actually learn just as much as you do as you try to figure those things out, because your partner, again, when we talk about like takedowns, they can learn because somebody's doing it more slowly now. They can learn about the preparative things that they can do, such as like lead leg blocking and keeping their posture up and preventing collar ties and all those things a lot easier than going with somebody who is training at competitive wrestling pace. So it's a lot of mutual benefit over it. And on the flip side, we're talking about being a limp towel rag as a training partner is the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of intensity. I know we talked about the spazzing and the aggressive part a lot because I think that's more common, but being the lazy type of partner is also just as bad, if not, I think it's not worse. And we kind of normally see this with larger people where they feel that, and sometimes it's not their fault, it's just the dynamics of things, but they feel that they would be like a bully if they actually use their size and weight against their smaller partners. So instead of modulating it, instead of learning how to adjust accordingly and choose moves and techniques that are not quote unquote big guy friendly to improve on, they just plop there. They just lie down during the start of the round and just lies there because they know you can't do shit. They know you can't mount them properly. They know that you cannot take their back. You ain't gonna body triangle them, things like that. And they're just lying there. So what's the point in that? You're not helping other people. Neither are you making your own training more fun. And frankly, like as a bigger person, I would imagine it would be fun to learn how to invert and play guard and do K guards and those kind of things. Play De La Hiva rather than just like spamming Kimuras and deep halves and just lying on top of people, mutter milking them. So I think ultimately, it's really a matter of self-awareness and self-humility of what you are good at and what you are not good at. And if you have the mindset of always be seeking and understanding your own shortcomings, your own limitations, and your perpetual pursuit of learning something new and getting better and having more depth in terms of your skill development, I don't think you'll run the risk of being accused of being too spazzy or being too, what's the opposite word of spazzy? I don't know, laid back. Let's just call it laid back. There's a difference between rolling chill versus being a damn towel, right? If you can roll chill and have very technical movements, entries, and control. And the only difference is you are not cranking the finish. Or even if you are trying to finish it, you're like putting it to the point where there's no escape, but you don't need to complete it. And you can keep your partner very safe. At the highest level, for example, if you watch Gordon Ryan compete at the highest level, he almost, when he gets leg locks, he almost never finishes. He doesn't like torque like the other more aggressive guys that will like go belly down and just like gator roll until Paul Harris level of like knee snapping. No, he knows when he gets it tight, it's there. It's silly for you to try to escape. And their opponents know that. And you can see that they don't even bother. They'll try a little bit and they're like, okay, you got me. And you can still assert your dominance that way for being super technical. I'm sure you've been rolling with a few of your upper level guys in your gym that when they get you, let's say in an armbar position, you know it's over. But you know you're safe. They're giving you a chance to figure out how to escape and things like that. And then when they figure out, nah, you're not getting anywhere, they'll extend you, but they won't even reach the point of hyperextension to cause you pain. You just know that, okay, it's a bit too late. And that's hopefully how you should approach training. Because again, you do not win training. Please remember that. The goal of training is not to win training. The goal of training is to get better, okay? So whether you're a Spazz or you're a Limp towel, have some self-awareness and develop that aspect of your game. Hopefully you'll enjoy Jiu-Jitsu better. And that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Jitsu Uncle out. Peace.